After about a month, I was restored to health again, and made my home with my brother-in-law the next winter, working at different places. About this time, our frontiers were greatly distressed by the enemy at the northward. We had frequent alarms. In April, the enemy came out as far as Danbury, where there was a large store of provisions, and burned the towns, stores, and most heathen-like, burned the house for public worship. The country was greatly alarmed, and all of us who were friends of our country turned out. Early on the morning of the 26th, under the command of General Silliman, we pursued the enemy. Not long after, Generals Wooster and Arnold joined us. A heavy rain slowed our movements, and we did not reach Bethel until late at night. On the morning of the 27th, we were astir at a very early hour. General Wooster detached Arnold and Silliman with about 500 of us to advance to intercept the enemy in the front, while he led a force of 200 to attack them in the rear. About 9 o'clock, Wooster came up with the enemy as they were marching upon the road. Taking advantage of the uneven ground, Wooster fell upon the whole regiment with such ferocity as to throw them into confusion and break their ranks. Before they could be restored to order, he had succeeded in taking 40 prisoners. He continued to hang up on their skirts and harass them for some time, waiting for another favorable opportunity to make an attack. A few miles from Ridgefield, the hills appeared to offer a chance of breaking their ranks for a second time. He again charged furiously upon them. The rear guard now faced about, and met him with the discharge of artillery and small arms. His men returned their shot resolutely at first, but as they were not used to battle, they soon began to fall back. Wooster sought to inspire them with his own courage. Turning his horse's head and waving his sword, he called out to them in a brisk tone.
"Come on, boys, never mind such random shot."
Before he had time to turn his face again toward the enemy, one of those random shots struck him in the back. He instantly fell from his horse, and would die a few days later. Meanwhile, those of us at the front, under Silliman and Arnold, threw up a temporary barricade across the road on the rising ground, and stationed to cover our right flank by a house and barn, and our left by a ledge of rocks. Here, we quietly awaited the enemy. When the Redcoats saw the position we had taken, they advanced and received our fire. And although they sustained considerable loss, they returned it with spirit. The action lasted about 10 minutes when the British gained the ledge of rocks, and we were obliged to retreat. Arnold was shot at by a whole platoon of soldiers, standing not more than 30 yards from him. His horse was killed under him. Snatching his pistols, he shot dead a soldier who was moving up to him to run him through with his bayonet, and thus made his escape. We kept up a scattering fire till nearly night, when General Tryon encamped at Ridgefield. In the morning, the British set fire to the church and resumed their march. But we followed them up so closely that they soon crossed the Saugatuck River and marched to the east side of it, while we kept pace with them on the west. Thus we advanced, cannonading each other whenever we could find a convenient opportunity. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we forded the river, and unperceived by the enemy, attacked them with a desperate violence upon their rear and upon their left flank. Pursuing them, and keeping up a galling fire that did them very serious harm, we pushed forward through the mouth of the river, and drawing up in good order upon the hill, opened a heavy fire. We could follow them no further on account of the dangerous proximity of the enemy's ships. The British troops who were marching in the van immediately embarked, while the center and rear formed on a hill. While we discharged cannon at the boats, Colonel Lamb crept up with about 200 men behind a stone wall and gave them a parting salute. The enemy suffered heavy losses, but so many of our militia troops came from the distance and were not able to arrive in time to cut off their retreat. We had survived a severe engagement, but lost some brave officers and worthy citizens.